So many big games last night. Good games as well. Not a lot of action tonight on Friday, the 28th. So we're going to get through most of these games. I know there are some big ones that you guys want to hear about, some upsets. And I put those in quotes because some of these teams are really, really good. But there are some true upsets as well. Let's just get into it. Let's start with the Big Ten since there were only two games yesterday. Purdue versus Penn State, 92 to 85. Two big games from Rashunda Jones and Gabby Elliott. They both had matching 32s, 32 points, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists for Rashunda Jones. But Purdue also got 29 points off the bench. Sophie Swanson, 10 out of 13, 5 for 6 from the 3-point line. She had 29 points, 3 steals to go along with Rashunda Jones's big game, and that's what got them to win versus Penn State. Gabby Elliott, again, 32 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. She did her thing. It just wasn't enough. Now, I'll be honest, neither of these two teams are teams that I'm expecting to make much noise come tournament time, but I do want to give those ladies their flowers because they balled out. Maryland versus Indiana. This is one that I did watch this morning. I didn't watch it live, but I went back and watched it commercial free this morning. 74 to 60 over Indiana. Indiana, they're a good team. Even though they're only 17 and 11, they've caused some very good teams some problems this season. Smichael, she had a so-so game, but Cheyenne Sellers, she came alive in the fourth quarter, scored 21 of her 25, as you see on the headline there. That's a fourth quarter worth watching. If you guys haven't watched it, pretty sure you can find it somewhere on YouTube. Just pull it up and really just skip to the fourth quarter. I mean, Kayleen Smichael, she held them down for the majority of the game. But watching Cheyenne Sellers go to work like that and seeing the way she turned it on, I'm sure a lot of WNBA scouts were really liking what they saw with that. They already boosted her up in the draft boards when we saw that game versus USC. She did have a little bit of an injury, came back kind of so-so, but she's back in full effect for a while now. So good to see that happening. All right, let's get out of the Big Ten and head to the ACC. We're going to save the SEC for last. Now, all right, Stanford 86 to 69 over Miami. That's cool. Let's talk about Georgia Tech versus California because there's a lot of talk about UCLA. There's a lot of talk about USC. I feel like somehow and for some reason, California kind of gets left out, mainly because they've kind of underperformed at times. They did fight their way into the top 25 and then drop right back out. But for a team that's only had 7 losses this season, they haven't had nearly enough attention. Now, Lulu Twidell is the player that I'm most familiar with, the player that I've followed for the longest on this team. I'll be honest with you. But Crimley, she's been solid all season. She's a nice player from Greece, 5 for 8 from the 3-point line. You see all of her attempts from the three-point range. 15 points in this one. Only one steal, but she plays really good defense. And she's really tough. She's a tough player. Ugan. Now I know her as Michelle, but Ugan Anya. And I'm pretty sure I butchered that name. That's why I just know her as Michelle. All right. And that's what she has on her Instagram as well. 24 points, 10 rebounds in this one. She was the one who held it down for Cal. A lot of people are sleeping on them. I know that Puff Morris is headed there next season. She's a player who I had on my radar all year long and last year as well from Etowanda. But this is a really good team. I'm not expecting them to necessarily go to the Final Four, but if your team goes up against Cal, don't think you have an easy game coming. They can easily put a good team out. Easily. So I just want to make sure that's known. I mean, Georgia Tech as well. Danny Carnegie is kind of falling off the off the map a little bit. She was going crazy at one point this season. I had her top 5 on my freshman of the year list. Hasn't held up since she's come back from I think it was 2 or 3 games that she missed for injury, but Kara Dunn, Morgan, Blackshear, I mean, they're holding it down. But right now, they seem to be on the downswing. Seems like they peaked mid-season when Carnegie was coming off the bench and consistently giving them 20 per game. Without that aspect of their game, they're just not the same team. Now, Virginia Tech, SMU. I'm gonna skip past those teams. Sorry. Pittsburgh, Syracuse. You guys haven't done enough this season to be talked about. You can't have losing records and get a lot of screen time. I'll lose my following here. Louisville, that's who I want to talk about because they've been on the road. 20-8 this season. They fought their way up to the 25th rank. They play Notre Dame next, and Notre Dame's we'll talk about them in a second, but Louisville is on the road. They're on a roll. Forget this game. Let me just look at their last 5 or 6 games. Ever since they took that loss to Notre Dame, they're coming back to try to avenge in their next one. Matter of fact, let's start earlier in the season. Earlier in the season, we saw they lost to every team that was worth something. UCLA, they took the loss. Kentucky, even though it was only a 7 point loss, but they took the loss. All right, they lost to Kentucky. They lost to Oklahoma. They lost to UConn. They lost to NC State. They just lost against every good team that they faced. But after they took this L to Notre Dame, it seems like they're starting to get themselves together at just the right time. We see they beat California when they were ranked 21st. They beat Florida State as well as Stanford, but they beat 23rd ranked Florida State. They beat 11th ranked Duke. They took a 4 point loss to North Carolina. That was 3 ranked teams in a row, 5 out of 6 games. The way that they beat Clemson last night by 26 points just really put the hands on them. Clemson has hung tough with a lot of teams that are ranked higher right now than Louisville. So that was an impressive win for me. Now they get a chance to go into Notre Dame and get their revenge from that 89-71 loss that they took on their home court. Notre Dame, 2 losses in a row. This is a dangerous game for them. They're not looking good right now. Maybe this would be a bounce back opportunity for them, but this is a very dangerous game. It's not a given that they're going to go in and get this game, even though Louisville is ranked 25th. In this game particularly, it was Curry who had 15 points and 10 rebounds. Nice game from her. Tajiana Roberts, she's been one of the best freshmen. I was going to say rookies. She's been one of the best freshmen so far this season, just consistent all season long. Not a lot of dips like we've seen from some of the other freshmen, but just solid. And I'll be honest, I was expecting a lot more from Mac Randolph. Maybe we'll see it next season. Hasn't really happened this year for her. But Olivia Cochran, Tajiana Roberts, Jada Curry, this is a team that can knock somebody off, as we've seen recently. And the fact that they're peaking at just the right time, I love that for Louisville. Now, NC State, they're showing that they're really a ninth-ranked team, 23-5. We saw that game that they just had against Notre Dame. They backed that up with another good game against Wake Forest. We saw a little bit more of my girl Zam Jones in this one. Zoe Brooks had a good game. A little bit less production from Tilda Trigger than what we've seen recently, but that's okay. They won by 22 points, so we're not gonna, or 21 points, so we're not gonna nitpick what anybody did or didn't do. As a team, they showed up. Isaiah James had a great game with 21 points, 4 assists, and 2 steals. She was 6 for 15 from the 3 point line, so she was letting it go indiscriminately. She was letting it ride. But yeah, like I said, 8 points from Zam Jones in 21 minutes. You love to see that. I think she's a really big piece for them coming off the bench. She's a player that can catch a team slipping if they're not ready for her. I saw that in a few games earlier this season where she had big games and teams just didn't seem like they had a good game plan for how to stop her particular style of play, which is buckets. She is a bucket from anywhere on the floor. Now, Duke versus North Carolina. This was a revenge game for Duke. They lost on North Carolina's floor. They had them at home in this game, and they got the revenge with a 15-point win. Now, I told you guys before in my top 25 breakdowns how I feel about North Carolina, how I feel about Duke. But look, neither team has really disappointed. They're both about what we thought they were at the beginning of the season. Whether or not I'm too high on them or not, in this game, Reagan Richardson went off for 23 points. Toby Fournier, a player who I've talked about pretty much every time that I've talked about Duke, 19 points, 10 rebounds, 2 blocks, even hit a three in this one. 6 for 7 from the free throw line in just 24 minutes. She continues to play behind Delaney Thomas. Your guess is as good as mine on that one, but we're not supposed to question coaches, I suppose, so I won't. All I'll say is that Toby Fournier is the real deal. Had a hell of a freshman season despite being on the bench all year long. Now, I've said it before. Give her 30 minutes a game. Give her a few more touches than what she's getting. I think Duke's ceiling can even be higher than what it is right now, but they're playing according to what their game plan is, and it worked in this game versus North Carolina. This is the game that everybody wants to talk about from the ACC, or at least me, because Florida State and Tanaya Latson, Michaela Timpson, Amaria Gordon, they got the win versus Notre Dame yesterday. It was Timpson holding it down. Timpson and Gordon holding it down for the majority of the game in this one. And then Tanaya Latson came alive in the late third and the fourth quarter. She ended up with 23 points, 9 assists, 2 steals, and a block, a bunch of clutch buckets, 9 from 10 from the free throw line. Like I said, Michaela Timpson was outstanding in this game. 22 points and 17 rebounds. It's still it's beyond me why she's not higher on some people's draft boards, but that's fine with me. I love the energy that she plays with. I love the consistency that she brings. She reminds me a lot of Liatu King, who we saw go for 17 and 11 in this game, and the fact that they can't be denied. Every time they step on the floor, they're going to do what it is that they do. There's not a lot of variation when it comes to them and their stat line. So I love that. Viegas was good in this game. 4 for 7 from the 3-point line. She was huge for them. They kept them afloat until tonight Latson got going, and that's when Florida State was able to blow this game open. Now that's 2 losses in a row for Notre Dame, and like I said, a very dangerous Louisville team looking for revenge for that earlier loss that they took this season. They're in a very dangerous position right now. I mean, does it really matter in the big scheme of things? As far as positioning, as far as the bracket goes, yes. But, as long as they're healthy, they're good. Sonia Citron balled out in this one as well as Liatu King. But let's take a look at Hannah Hidalgo's recent struggles because just in these last 5 games, we see 16 in this game, 26 in a double overtime versus NC State, but she didn't score at all in either overtime period. 18 at Miami, 19 at Duke, 11 against Pittsburgh. But more importantly are these field goal percentages and 3-point percentages. 22%, 30%, 40%, 40%, and 17.6% from the field. Those are some awful shooting nights. And then from the 3-point line, we see 0% last night, 28.6%, 2 games in a row at 20%, and then 16.7%. So she's in a bit of a slump. Quite a slump, actually. 5 games in a row. I'm not sure if it's tired legs. Now, in the last game, I said that potentially it was the defense because you do have players like Sanaya Rivers out there on defense, but it just looks like she's in a funk. And I'm not sure if it's she's worn down, if it's just a slump that she'll bounce back from, or what. But it's not looking like it did earlier this season at all for her. Same for Olivia Miles. She's been down too for these last few games. Let's just take a look so you don't have to take my word for it. 0% in this game from the 3-point line, 30% in the last game versus NC State, also 20% in both games versus Miami and Duke. So she's on the downswing as well. And I don't know if it's the big minutes that they played all season long. If you go back earlier in the season, those big minutes really helped them build chemistry early when they went against certain teams that were in and out as far as their rotations and getting new players acclimated to the team. But maybe those big minutes that they played have started to catch up with them. I don't know. Or maybe they could just be in a slump. Statistically, Water always seeks its own level. And so that's something that I've talked about all season long with some of these teams that are playing above their heads from a shooting percentage standpoint. You can't maintain that all season long. Everything is going to even out at some point. All right. And like I said, no action in the Big 12 last night. So let's get right into the SEC. I want to start with Arkansas versus Missouri because this was a good game that I had to go back and rewatch. Missouri took the win by 2 points. Neither team is one that I expect to do much come tournament time. But I want to talk about Izzy Hickenbottom because I think I've only mentioned her once all season long, which is a shame because she's been balling out in her senior year. She had 32 points, 9 rebounds in this one. But let's just look at her season stats, man, because I feel like she's somebody who's been really slept on all season long, still being slept on WNBA mock boards. 23.8 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 3.7 assists on the season at 5'7". I'm sure that her size has a lot to do with the fact that she's not so highly regarded as a prospect. But look, at some point we've got to get past that, right? Georgia Amore, she's shown that she's a true prospect at her height. She's not the only one. She's not the only one. She's over 90% every single year from the free throw line. Her 3-point shooting, it's average. It's average. She's gone over 36% twice, 33% this season. She was 0 for 5 last night and still got her 32 points. So she's a bucket. That's just showing you that she's not reliant on long range gunning. She's actually getting to it and getting into her bag to get some of these buckets. Vanderbilt, they took the win against Texas A&M in this one. Camille Pierre, now she is a player who we've talked about a lot this season as just a sophomore. 31 points, 6 rebounds, 9 steals. To have a sophomore as good as Camille Pierre and to have a freshman as good as Michaela Blake's and to have that new facility that they have right now going on at Vanderbilt, this is a team to watch out for next season. I mean, they'll be dangerous in the tournament too this year, but next season, I'm pretty sure people are going to look to transfer there. That's a team that I would be looking to transfer there. If I was a really good player looking for a new home, Vanderbilt is the one. They're going to be a major player in the SEC next season. I'm calling it now. I don't think I'm going out too far on a limb when I say that. Georgia versus Auburn, yeah, you guys have 23 wins combined. Florida, I love you guys. Liv McGill, she has a good game. They just haven't had it all season long. So Oklahoma taking that win, 89-65. That's to be expected. Let's talk about my girls over at Kentucky because if you're a subscriber and if you're not, now's the perfect time to go ahead and hit that subscribe button and also hit the like button for me. I really like Kentucky as a team, the way they're constructed. Now, Amelia Hassett, she didn't really show up in this game. She was 0 for 3 from the 3-point line, 1 for 6 with just 2 points. She did have 8 rebounds, though. And that's what I like about this team. They have 3 players that can hit you with double-digit rebounds. And like I said, not any night, but every night. Tiani Key had 10 rebounds. Clara Strack had 15. Never mind 6'7" Clara Silva coming off the bench. You guys have heard this spiel before from me. But to have that much size, 6'3" Hassett, 6'4" Tiani Key, 6'5" Clara Strack, and then you've got 2 ballers in the backcourt. Georgia Amore with 18 and 7. We already know what she can do. Deja Lawrence, 13 and 5. It's like I told you guys before. She's not a player that you can ignore just because they have so many other options. She's going to ring you up for 13 and 15 every single game. I really like this Kentucky game. They've really let me down, like I said in my last AP Top 25 review. They've really let me down in some of their big matchups this season. They have a big game coming up against South Carolina where they get to maybe add some more to their resume. But regardless of what happens in that game, very dangerous team in this tournament, and I think they're gonna send somebody home sad. I do. 22 and 5 on the season, despite some of their disappointments, but I feel like Kentucky is one of those teams, man. I feel like they're definitely Sweet 16 bound. I think they might even make it to the Elite Eight, honestly, or could make it to the Elite Eight. Now, Alabama got the win versus LSU for their third loss of the season. Once again, we saw their lack of an inside defensive presence coming back to haunt them. Anissa Morrow is a pure baller. I already told you guys, she's my pick right now to win WNBA Rookie of the Year next season. I'm standing on that. I'm standing on that. Doesn't get a lot of blocks. She did have 2 blocks in this game, but it's the steals for me. She just reminds me so much of Nafisa Collier, the way she gets the points, gets the rebounds at 6'1", but gets her hands everywhere and on balls, no matter who's holding it, no matter who's getting the rebound. The ball is never safe when she's around. That's that wingspan. That's helping her get the rebounds and the steals. 2 blocks in this one. That's something that we're not used to seeing from her, but they just don't have really good rim protection. Only 4 blocks as a team in this one. And Sarah Ashley Barker, she went to work. 21 points, 5 assists. Leah Nye, though, she was the player of the game, obviously, with 28 points, 3 for 4 from the 3-point line. Essence Cody had 17, 5 blocks. See, that's the kind of inside presence that LSU doesn't have. So they're an incomplete team as far as I'm concerned. Very dangerous, but a very incomplete team. I do expect them to make it to at least the Elite Eight, but I don't have them as a team that we're expecting to see in the top 4. I just don't because of that lack of inside presence on a defensive standpoint. That's just my opinion. You guys can let me know how you feel about LSU. I'm sure I know how you LSU fans feel about LSU, but everybody else who's a little less biased, let me know how you guys feel about LSU and their prospects. I think Elite Eight is where it stops for them. If they even get there, they might run into a team like Kentucky in the Sweet 16 and not get there at all. We'll see. I don't care what happened in the last game, all right? I'm talking about in the tournament. Chloe Kitts. Chloe Kitts with a triple double, man. 16 points, 13 rebounds, and 10 assists. Led South Carolina to an easy win over Ole Miss. Ole Miss has been a problem for some teams lately, but yeah, South Carolina, they took care of business. They look like a team that's really serious ever since that loss they took to UConn. We'll see what they do in their last game of the season, but I really like what's going on with South Carolina. Malaysia Fulwiley, she's come along. Joyce Edwards, she's been their most consistent scorer all season long. I like them. They're not the powerhouse that we're used to seeing them being, just the undefeated team who's definitely going to make it to the Final Four, who's definitely going to make it to the championship game. They're not that team this year, but they are a team that I expect to see in the Final Four. Chloe Kitts, Sanaya Fagan, they all did their thing. Hina Pau, she was only 1 for 9 from 3 in this game. Ole Miss Rebels, they're not ranked anymore. They came into the season ranked 25th. They're not really that team. When we're looking at SEC teams, they're not that. I will put them more towards the bottom half. Honestly, when I look at teams like Texas, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Oklahoma, LSU, I will put all of those teams. Did I mention Bama? I will put all of those teams above Ole Miss, but they're still a team that's not really an easy out for a lot of teams, and so they got it done. Now, Texas, 68-64, struggled in a win versus Mississippi State. I don't know. That number one position is kind of cursed, man. Nobody has really been able to hold on to it for too long. We'll see how they do in their last game of the season, but not too impressive in this one to me. 68-64. Wyndon Tonda was their leading scorer in this one. Well, was their best player in this one with 15 and 11. So good to see them. They just have so much variety, so many different players that can step up on a game to game basis. That's what really makes them dangerous. Now, before I go, I did say I was going to stick to the Power Four conferences, but I do want to dip into the Big East just for a second here because I got to give some shouts out to the hometown team, Marquette. They won 62-37. They're 20-8 on the season. I know the Big East isn't that competitive, but Skylar Forbes, she's a player who I highlighted earlier this season. I have her on my list of players who I hope will be willing to transfer to USC next season. 6'3" forward. Look, man, 15 points and 8 rebounds, 3 steals, 4 blocks, 3 from 6 from the 3-point line. These are her season stats. Now let's look at her freshman year. She was averaging 4.7 points, 15% from the 3-point line. She was only getting 18 minutes, but still, she wasn't doing a lot with it. Her improvement this season, I have her right there with Camille Pierre and Clara Strack as players who were freshmen last year and just took a huge leap in their sophomore season. I won't say that they're the most improved players from the season because that list has gotten long. And I can give that guys to you once the season ends, but just look at her numbers for this year. 30 minutes a game, 15.2 points, 6 rebounds, not too much in the assist category. That's not her job. But 1.4 steals and 1.9 blocks, 33% from three, 89% from the free throw line. A huge improvement over the 66% that she was shooting last season. She's high on my list of most improved players, high on my list of players that I hope to see play at the Galen Center next season. Hey, Skylar, how you doing? Um, this is just a shameless plug, a shameless pitch to try to get Skylar Forbes in the USC jersey next season. I know that Gino Auriemma, he likes to dip into Marquette. That's where he got Liza Collar from last year. He likes to dip into the Wisconsin area and draft players. That's where he got KK Arnold from. Yeah, I want to see Skylar Forbes in the USC jersey next season, along with Sarah Williams. I have a long list. I'm not going to give it to you guys right now, but that's it. That was just a shameless pitch to Skylar Forbes to say, hey, we see you. We see what you're doing over there in Marquette. Come on over to the big floor and to the big stage, and we can make some things happen. That's all, you guys. I'm going to wrap it up here. I will give some video breakdown on that Notre Dame game because Tania Latson, she's been dynamite. I still remember that play that she had against North Carolina to seal the deal. Can't get over that. In my opinion, that was a play of the year between that and Ashton Watkins with her dunk on Sedona Prince. Um, those are my favorite moments of this season. So I'll wrap this one up here. Thank you guys for watching. This is a really long video. I know. I know. Probably should have been a live stream, but we'll work on that. Until then, catch you guys on the next one.